days are cooler, nights are warmer, and I put the blame on you. Time moves slow, but my heart beats faster. When these eyes are looking right at you, right at you. You give me something to believe in, just what I needed. You're the closest.
Everybody listen to my voice. In these United States of America, you live in a city. Who runs your city? How is your city run? Let me welcome back to the show. I brought this brother back on because he is the new president of the African American Mayors Association. He's the mayor of Montgomery, Alabama. I think the South, again, the South is going to rise, and we're going to need us in those positions to make things happen. Let me welcome back to the show Mayor Stephen Reed. Hi.
How are you? Thank you for having me again.
Yeah, well, listen, we got work to do. I'm good. You're good. Okay. Let's start basics. Basic civics 101. I live in a city. I'm from East Orange. Let's take East Orange, New Jersey. You know, I lived on Lafayette Avenue for most of my life, before that Arlington and Walnut Street. I lived on 96 North Walnut Street. I remember it like it was yesterday. But I didn't understand as a little girl, even as an adult, how my city ran. I know that the mayor lived in my neighborhood. We knew who he was. At some point it was Bowser. We interacted. He came to our fish fries on the street, I knew who but I didn't know what he did. So just basic civics, Mayor Steve. What do you do as mayor of the city of Montgomery, Alabama?
I think I, like a lot of mayors, wear a lot of hats depending on the day. As the charter here, describes his office in legal terms as the CEO of the city. So that's exactly, what a mayor is, regardless of the size of the town, village, or city that you may have. And here we're a full-time mayor position. So we run the day-to-day operations from public safety to finances to public works, sanitation, street maintenance, all those things, to traffic and engineering, to parks and recreation, and many, many other areas, whether that's legal or whether that's financial in the city. So you're meeting with your staff day to day about what are the current challenges you may have, what are some of the mid and long-term challenges that you may have, and what are some of those proposed solutions. But you're also meeting with, constituent groups, your residents who have
Okay, wait, pause there. There are
Yeah.
groups of people in your city that will petition to you to have certain things done, and those are the people you meet with, not the random folk yelling in the streets, to no one about this ain't done, but they're actually organized groups that come to the mayor, and those are the people that get your attention. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly what I'm saying. I think that.
Okay,
that's
wait. So, Paul, I'm sorry, Mayor Steve. So, those listening, right? You don't have to be mayor, but you could be a community organizer with a particular agenda in your city, because now you will have the power to come to the mayor as part of a collective, and the mayor's going to listen to you, because who's going to want to turn away a bunch of folk who come in that way? Those are votes and voters.
Oh, absolutely. And we realize that, civic engagement is key. And we can't have eyes and ears everywhere. So we rely on those community leaders and those community organizers who are bringing things to the table around a number of issues, not just, one or two, but, it may be things that, again, we don't quite understand from our viewpoint, because we aren't right there in that particular neighborhood, on that particular block, on that street. So there's something going on in some houses that are supposed to be vacant that aren't. There's some activity there. Those are things that help us out. If there are people who are telling us, that there's another issue around crime or criminal activity in a space, but it's also, hey, think about development, think about retail. These are some issues with the infrastructure we're having with our water, with our air. How do we deal with those things? So you're kind of juggling, several balls in the air at the same time as mayor. You're running the city in a corporate fashion. You're meeting with your cabinet and all of your directors and division leaders, but you're also talking to your rank and file employees, and you're talking to people in the city that have their own perspective of what they would like to see improved. And sometimes they're looking for some answers. Sometimes it's not a silver bullet. It's just, can you give me an answer on this stop sign? Can you give me an answer on this overgrown grass, or why this building hasn't been torn down and that's creating more neighborhood blight on my block? All of those are relevant concerns for the everyday person.
Mayor Stephen Reed is here. He's the new president of the African American Mayors Association. He's also mayor of Montgomery, Alabama, historic city. We're gonna be spending some time with him because what I also plan to do with this platform is construct and reconstruct and remember how power is fomented in this country, right? And we're going to use the system itself. And as the rules change, we're going to be ahead of the rules because we're going to make our own rules. We're going to start setting the table for the things we want to get done. So let me go back to young Stephen Reed, who was a financial analyst who decided to get involved politically or at least civically and become a lobbyist. What was that transition? And first of all, having a financial understanding makes you more equipped. Because again, I think we elect people because they are nice, or they have a great campaign speech, or they debated well. We don't actually look at people's credentials. Can this person do the job? If it is a CEO, is this person equipped to actually manage finances of a city, an entire city? So for you to make that transition from financial analyst to a lobbyist to lobby your state legislature to get things done, walk us through that.
You are taking me back. I just spoke to a group of high school students in a summer program here just before logging on. And one of the things that I told them was that, the path to the corner office wasn't, direct. It wasn't something that I just knew from day one, what was going to happen. I ran my own small business. I had a restaurant franchise. I was a franchisee. I did management consulting after working in corporate America. And so I kind of had a little winding path of trying to see what fit my goals and objectives, what fit my personality. And I think as I got into the government relations arena around lobbying and legislation, that was kind of that middle ground of those who approached me, and a former mentor of mine who said, well, all right, you want to make a little money, but you have a real heart for politics and government. You want to see things work. We need more of that. Why don't you consider come down here and being an advocate on certain issues, in your legislature? In some cities, it's at City Hall and so forth. And that was one of the things that I really wanted to do. And, it kind of gave me a glimpse of really how the sausage is made. I tell national groups now that we focus on Congress. Congress is a sideshow at this point. Congress passed 25 bills, I think, in the last year. Versus your state legislature is passing hundreds, if not thousands of bills. The real action is taking place at the state level. So for me, being a government relations person, someone who lobbied our legislature, you literally had to sit through hours and hours of committee meetings and testimony. You had to go through, several drafts of legislation. You also got to find out who was behind that legislation, who was pushing it, and why. It's not always spelled out, and most people don't know that these are the laws that are impacting not only them, but now my position as mayor, I've realized impact us. And, often these are legislators who don't live in your city, they don't live in your area, but they're creating laws that you have to live by, and they are far more intrusive, they are far more preemptive than anything that the federal government does at this point. And it really allows you to see how government works from subcommittee to committee to your legislature to conference committee to your governor or lieutenant governor and all of those who are signing off on it. It really, really is an interesting place to be. And that was many years ago, where there was not near as much activity happening in our state houses as what we see the conservatives doing around this country now, in state house by state house, how they have organized these things, which is why we see many of the same laws change a few words here or there, introduced in several different states, because they're coming out of the same think tank and they're coming from the same organizations.
Wait, pause. So there are think tanks that meet, and then they come up with, here are the things. We're going to put the 10 Commandments in every school, mandate that. We want the Bible taught. Okay. So what do we have to do? We got to go lobby Oh, no, first let's place some state legislators there that are going to push this through because this is what we want. And then we got to hand them the laws and then they're going to push it through. But they're also lobbyists. So those are lobbyists too. Those think tanks are lobbyists. How did you become a lobbyist? And was it a paid job, Mayor Stephen Reed? Was
it's
it
a
something?
paid job. It's very well
Okay.
paid.
Wait, hold on. Say that out loud. So, so to be a paid lobbyist, you can make money?
Oh, it's a very well paid job. It is definitely that. I had a mentor, Lamar Higgins, who brought me into that space. And, he was someone who was one of the first Black lobbyists here in Alabama. And at the time, the Democrats and our state Black caucus, was really advocating for more Black lobbyists. And they used their power to bring young people like myself on to some of those opportunities, which had never been open to many of us, or people even older than I am at that time. And it was to bring a different viewpoint, a different perspective. I know that's now in the days of this Supreme Court, in this conservative environment, those are things we don't appreciate anymore. But it was something to bring a diverse perspective on into the process, because quite often the state legislators don't have staff. So it's not like a congressman's office. Right. So the state legislators are asked to read, hundreds of bills. They don't have the staff. So they wanted, government relations professionals and lobbyists that could help them sort out the bills, translate what it all means, and kind of what the main points and main takeaways were for that. So, it's very well paid, because the laws that you're enacting, you take a state that impacts tens of millions of people. That is a lot of money on both sides, those who are for, those who are against. So it makes sense for them to hire, influencers, if you will, in the legislative space to help persuade state lawmakers to be for or against a particular item.
So from lobbyist, you you live in the city. You're from Montgomery, born and raised, Montgomery, Alabama. Joe and Molly, one of three, growing up in Montgomery. What propelled you into saying, I want to be mayor after all of these, different experiences that you had? What was the impetus to become mayor or to run for mayor?
I like to say frustration and inspiration. And I think that compels a lot of us to do different things, whether that be in our personal lives or our professional lives. But I was, moved initially by the presidency of Barack Obama and the history that was made there. And as I started to think about someone who, too, had a great educational background and decided to choose public service, I didn't quite see it as much in terms of how much money was I making? I started to think about, okay, what kind of difference, am I making? If I'm a management consultant, if I'm a lobbyist, if I'm going tomorrow, am I going to be missed? And the answer was unequivocally no. You're not going to be missed. You're going to be replaced. And so, I just started thinking about, where can I make a difference? And I had been involved in politics behind the scenes. I've been involved in campaigns, volunteered for a lot of different organizations. So then it started to become, we aren't quite getting the movement that we want to get. So how do we get there? And again, I had a good circle of friends, classmates from my alma mater, Morehouse College, and fraternity brothers. Shout out to Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, just coming back from Tampa, Florida, for our conclave. But I had a good circle of folks, even outside of my family, to say, look, you keep talking about what needs to happen. Why don't you get involved? Why don't you consider running? And I still was not hearing it. And I had a friend of mine who I think was fed up with me trying to recruit them to run, and who said, well, Steve, you think it's so important, why don't you do it? And it was kind of said, kind of matter of fact, kind of in your face. And my response was, I just might. And so kind of, again, with the foundation of President Obama having just won and what he was doing in the late 2000s, I decided to run right after that, in 2011, which was the 2012 election cycle. And we won. We made history then as the first Black probate judge, the highest elected official in the county.
Oh, wait, we skipped over something. So before mayor, you were a probate judge?
I was for 7 years.
Okay. For 7 years. Okay. Okay, so from lobbyist to probate judge. What the hell is a probate judge? And does everybody have one in their town, in their county, or what? Like, is it a county job? What? How do you
It's
become
a
a
county
probate
position.
judge?
Yeah, it's a
Okay.
county position. It may be called something in DC, kind of Maryland, it's kind of called Orphans Court. In some other areas, it goes under a different name. But the basic tenets of this were you dealt with involuntary commitments to your mental hospitals. You dealt with adoptions. I'd like to tell people that anything that wasn't criminal or at a high level civil was probate. Adoptions, all of your wills and estates, your guardianships, conservatorships, anything real estate related, your taking.
So Britney Spears wasn't, just to put it where it goes, if Britney Spears was in Montgomery, Alabama,
she'd have been in my court.
She'd have been in your court.
Absolutely. That's a conservatorship 100%. Anything if it's dealing with the rights of an estate, whether it's Aretha Franklin or anybody else that's been out there, those things come our way. But here's the third kind of piece of this. So it's 1/3 administrative, because all business licenses, all of your county licenses came through the probate court, but your pistols went to the sheriff's department. I'm not trying to get in the weeds, but so very, very powerful position. But here's the piece that
how did you know that though, Mayor Steve? I'm sorry, because I would never think I would be a probate court judge. Like, what are the qualifications? How did you even know that this was a powerful position that you needed to sit for 7 years on this court?
Well, I had a father who was one of the first Black city councilmen here in Montgomery, Alabama, and who led the Alabama Democratic Conference, which was or still is the most powerful Black political caucus in Alabama. So with them coming out of that civil rights, voting rights movement, I certainly had an inside track in terms of knowing more about government positions and the impact than most, because I had to sit in all these meetings. I had to go to all these meetings and volunteer, even though I'd be voluntold what I was going to do. And so I had to meet, school board members, city council members, and, all of these things would come up about, the different areas of government, how it impacted us in particular here in Alabama, but also nationally. And I think he was the first person that mentioned that to me. And it was something that in our community we knew about, because the last point here, and I tell people, it was kind of 3 tracks. You were administrative, you had the judicial part, but the third part is key, because this is major in what you've been talking about. You were the chief election official for the county. And that is real. I mean, that's not to minimize the other parts of the position. The real power was in the elections. So you were essentially your county secretary of state. All right. So who was on the voting rolls? Who was allowed to qualify? Who counted the votes? All of those things were in my jurisdiction, were under my purview as probate judge. And so I was fortunate enough to receive the endorsement of the late Congressman John Lewis, who actively supported, because his point was, now we get the chance in Montgomery, Alabama, we had to march for the right to vote, to count the votes, and to have someone like yourself in there. And that came with a whole lot of education and information, and not just sitting back waiting for the election, but educating people on their rights, educating people on the election process. So we revamped a whole lot in that space. And it wasn't until I got in, and this is unfortunate because what you said is true. It wasn't until I got in that a lot of our voting electorate that was, majority Black, understood the difference between myself and what they had in someone with my progressive lens on things in government, and what we had with what I would call a typical Southern Republican elected official who would show up at our church, who might show up at some events from now, every now and then. And we thought that was okay because he wasn't calling us the N-word, or he wasn't the worst of the worst. So we got conditioned to think that was fine, which is why he served more terms than he should until we ran and displaced him in 2012. And it took me to get in there and really talk to community organizers, faith leaders, and other officials about here's what you don't know behind the scenes in this department. Here's what wasn't happening. And here's what we're going to do now. And we successfully had a great run over 7 years, and then catapulted me to the mayor's office here, which I tell people, as a judge, you're the thermometer, and as the mayor, you're the thermostat. Or vice versa. The mayor, you set the temperature. You're the thermostat, so you set the temperature as the mayor. And in the judgeship, you pretty much take the temperature. So that's why I wanted to get to the executive branch, so we could be more active and be more involved than I could be at the judicial level.
Mayor Steve Reed is here, Mayor of Montgomery, Alabama. He's also the new president of the African American Mayors Association. We're deconstructing power. Everybody lives somewhere. If hopefully we'll be able to share this particular clip with people in your lives, because we need to know, everybody who lives somewhere, how power is doled out. And if you can't understand it at that very, very basic level of where you live, everything else is going to confuse you, right? So he's walking us through this, and it's powerful. Here's the question, Mayor Reed: who took the baton from you in that probate judgeship? Was it somebody that you groomed to take the baton? Was it somebody that your council of elders decided, or was it, because it's an elected official, right? It's a position that we have to vote for, or did it go back to who had it before in terms of phenotype? Yeah, no, it didn't go back. The governor in that case, after I won the mayor's position, appointed a judge to that position. And that judge has subsequently run for office and won a full term. Okay. Is that person doing the job you did? Okay. They're not as active as I am. Okay. All right. Well, I mean, but if somebody had stepped up, so the governor. So again, as we move about the cabin, you didn't have the option, because of when the mayor's election was, to wait until there was a person running that you know what I'm saying? Like, this is how strategy is. You should be in the room. It's like, okay, in 2 years, I'm running for mayor. So somebody has to be, so maybe I step down before even if you don't know whether you're going to win or not, but if you have enough support, like, we need to be having these conversations like this. Do you know what I'm saying? We can't leave it up to a governor that may not have our best interests at heart. Now, you were the first Black mayor of Montgomery, Alabama, which is a city that what are the demographics of the city of Montgomery? Now it's about 67% Black, 35% white, and the remaining percent, if I'm getting my math straight, would be 33. It's 33% white. Okay, so it's just, yeah. I don't want you to go off the top of your head. Okay. Oh, yeah, it's 33%. Well, if it's 67% Black, it can't be more than 33% white. Oh, I'm sorry. So it's going to be extra people. It's the city is less than that, because we do have a growing Asian and Hispanic population. So you're right. That other 33% is going to be made up of white population and Asian American, as well as our growing Latino population here. That probably Asian American Latino population probably right about 5%. So that would put the white population about 28%. Okay. You know what's so in all its history, and it's been blackity black Montgomery for a long time, never had a Black mayor. Yeah. Can I explain that? Can I jump in on why? I need you to explain it. Yeah, and listen, I think it's key, right? In particular, what we deal with now at a national level. The people here had seen the city of Tuskegee, after the federal courts desegregated schools, really gerrymander into 27 sides. Now, I don't know how you even I don't even know there's a shape that has 27 sides. But that's how they gerrymandered Tuskegee, Alabama, after some of these federal lawsuits. And what people here saw was white flight. I mean, just overnight, right? Then you take the city of Selma, which sits to our west, again, another historic city, where many generations saw that when the city started to become majority Black, again, you saw the white flight, you saw the resources pull out. So for a long time, there was this belief that if Montgomery, as the capital, the state capital,
elected a black mayor, there would be more and direct white flight. Well, the white flight was happening, the entire time anyway. Just things were changing and people were moving as the city kind of got past, 55%, then 60% and so forth. And it was just a belief that if we can find a moderate white elected official, then we will get progress, and that's better than if we have someone black that they will take all the resources out of the city. And that was really the mindset. I mean, I had heard of a black mayor for 30 years, going back to high school. So I had heard of this person running, this person might be. I mean, I'd heard that for so many years, but there was just a fear, and essentially, of what would be the white response to the election of a black mayor. And that is what drove, out of fear, many leaders and certainly those who voted not to support potential black candidates who could have come from before me. And I think that there was just cause for that. So because I get asked that question a lot, and I try to give a little history because I think it's the history of America. I mean, we saw the suburbanization, whether it was Jersey, and Newark, and we saw these other cities in the late 60s go through these race riots, and we saw kind of what happened outside Chicago, outside of Detroit, many of these places that the suburbanization of America came out of what? White flight. And there was just this belief that if we could just find a way to work together and sing We Shall Overcome, then maybe we would. And that just that never happened. And I think, again, as early as 2009, I was working with a group of folks, and we were kind of taking the Detroit model, those that supported Coleman Young, those who supported
Harold Washington in Chicago.
Yeah. Oh, so of course, Harold Washington. And we tried to find a black candidate in 2009, lobbyists like myself, lawyers, prominent black lawyers, doctors, and corporate execs. We couldn't get kind of who we wanted to run. And again, I understand, never agreed with it, but I understand it. And now being in this seat, I certainly have gotten it a lot more clearly over the last 4.5 years, why we ended up in that space. So usually there's a backstory in these communities and these cities, large and small and mid-size, to kind of why certain shifts haven't happened. And that was, the case in Montgomery. I mean, it was far too long. I tell people now I should have run, before 2019. If somebody, I've been asked, well, what would you do different? Like I should have run before then. And I think the community would have stepped up. I just don't think some of the elders were there. Well, the elders may have been there, the old folks weren't there. Let me make a
distinction
between the two.
Yes.
The elders, I think, were there. Some of the old folks weren't there. And, by that time, I ran 2019, we had the wave going with us and we had the support to move forward.
Before we move on, I want to again, understand since people you said were afraid of electing a black person because they thought the money would leave with the white person. We're hearing that a lot, whether we're talking about Baton Rouge or, certain cities that are now having white flight and leaving where we have all of the resources. Can you explain, Mayor Reed, the money that comes in is from taxes, from real estate taxes? Mostly. So it's home ownership is the power base of every city. So what you're saying is, white people leaving, aren't there black homeowners? Aren't they paying taxes? I mean, I lived in East Orange, which paid more taxes than the quote unquote wealthier West Orange and South Orange my whole life. To this day, East Orange taxes are high, and it's a lot of homeowners in East Orange. And those resources are powerful. Please explain to us, why that fear was there, and was it real? Was it a real thing now that you sit in that seat?
Yeah, I think that not near enough people understand how government is funded and how it works. So that's not just black people, that's white people, that's brown folks and everyone else. That's across the board. I mean, you are an expert and you are someone who is keenly focusing and explains it in a way that I think many of us elected wish we could. We'd probably be a little bit more popular. But, so many people don't understand how government is funded and what it takes for your government that you start to believe, what you hear on the streets, if you will, what you hear in unverified circles, because you don't know any better. You don't know the civics. You're not engaged. We don't get the viewership at a city council meeting or at a committee work session. Like unless somebody's arguing, unless there's, a shouting match, then the viewership goes, through the roof. But, you don't typically get it because it's boring. It takes a long time. I get that. Government is, but it's something that impacts us more than our stocks and bonds and our portfolio. It impacts us in ways that we don't know. And I think that because, there are not a lot of people who understand it, you rely on trusted messengers, and you hope that they understand it and that they're well-informed and well-intentioned. And that comes with, a little bit of a mixed bag where that's concerned. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So we got to go to break. When we come back, I want you to walk us through how is a city funded? You're the mayor of the city. You're the CEO. How does money come in? And, so to pay for the public safety, the streets, the parks and rec, the garbage removal, all of that. How do you make money? Because we need to understand, everyone who lives somewhere, are you contributing to your city's success, or are you taking away from it? Are you adding to it? And if you aren't adding to it, how can you coalesce around putting more money into the pockets of the people that you elect to do the work? When you have a mayor like this, not a mayor like some of y'all have in New York, but a mayor like the one in Montgomery. Like, this man has been put here for a reason, and he seems to roll up his sleeves and is doing a fantastic job.
My days are cooler, nights are warmer, and I put the blame on you. Time moves slow, but my heart beats faster. When these eyes are looking right at you, you give me something to believe in, just what I needed. You're the closest.